Awesome.
Nailed it.
See you around. You feel that they will come.
Right.
So that's not the case anymore.
Through that suffering and through that community, I became a better Catholic.
Welcome back. I'm Darnell Miller, and today I'm here in Dallas at the Evangelical Catholic Conference, Priests for an Apostolic Age. And today I'm talking to Kelly Breaux, who's the founder and CEO of Red Bird Ministries. So thank you for being here with me, Kelly.
Thank you.
We're talking about priests for an apostolic age, and you're not a priest, but the apostolic age still concerns you. And it's an opportunity for us to meet people, meet our communities where they're at. So how does Red Bird Ministries serve the community that you serve?
Yeah, so Red Bird Ministries partners with dioceses and parishes to provide grief support for parents of child loss. So we serve from pregnancy all the way through adulthood. So our priests are our first responders, and we see them as being the ones, the good shepherds that ushers these families to their peers so that we can help them to heal holistically. So through the sacraments of the Catholic Church, of course, we need our priests, but also with experts. So we partner with grief experts, Catholic therapists, spiritual directors, and then we journey with them as peers. So a little bit about my story was I was a mother of loss. My husband and I experienced actually 4 losses, 2 after birth and 2 in utero. And the church was able to provide us with the Christian rite of burial. But then after that, we were left to make sense of death and dying and suffering in the secular world. The only thing that was available in our diocese was a once a year grief retreat that kind of was any type of loss. And it's child loss is different. And I always explain it that, when we lose our parent, our grandparent, it's in the natural progression of, the cycle of life. We lose our past, but when we lose our children, we lose our future. So it's harder for families to make sense and grapple with that and wrestle with that. And a lot of times what happens along that journey is that their faith is questioned. So if they're trying to make sense of death and dying and suffering in the secular world, it's always absent of God. Without God, death does not make sense. So we feel like it is the church's responsibility to walk and accompany these families through that. This is like one area where I feel that I, as a mother of loss, has the authority to speak into, because I've been through it. I know the struggles of the families, and a lot of times they're not sharing that with our clergy. So I want to help to be that voice, because we can't do it without God, but we also can't do it without our priests. And I've seen so much beauty come out of it, because I had a priest tell me one time, this was early on when we were just trying to understand like what God was calling us to. And he said, this is pro-life work. And I was like, we're talking about death, Father. And he said, to be open to life is to be open to death. And I was like, oh,
That's
but
profound.
we're not.
Yeah.
Like as the faithful, we're not. Like we're scared of it. We're scared to talk about it. We're scared to walk with people through it. And I think the apprehension of it is we don't know enough about it. How to walk and accompany.
Yeah, so accompany, use that word again. I think that's such a powerful statement, because I think in these moments, right, where we've experienced, that kind of loss, the natural reaction or the want is to retreat inward. And that is not what we need. The community is important. So can you speak to the importance of community in that regard?
Yeah, so for me, I believed in that moment of weakness that God had willed my children to die. And so that's where Satan will bring you to the brinks of despair. And I had to wrestle with that for a very long time, that God didn't will my children to die, but he will allow me to be sanctified through it. But that's not something I could go and make sense out of my own. I needed people who were further along the journey, who could remind me of God's promises and speak truth over those lies. And then when I realized, I'm not the only one that's thinking all these bad things, there's freedom in that. And as a community, I was able to share in that experience with my wrestle, but I also, through that suffering and through that community, I became a better Catholic. I became a better daughter. I became a better wife and a better mother.
So it kind of took it out of being like that mindset of being like an intellectual exercise of like, we know these things, but to live them out is a different thing. And we need community to get out of our heads, essentially.
I remember one thing Father Breaux told me, because I was so mad that people kept telling me not to question God. And I was like, Father, when they tell me that, like, it makes me so angry. And he said, those who tell you to never question God have never been given an opportunity to. Because all I had was all these questions. And when we remove community out of that space, that's when the doubt really can happen. The church stepping into that space and being brothers and sisters to these suffering. I mean, it's what Pope Francis calls us to smell, the good shepherds to smell like their sheep. We know the promises, we know the truth, we know there's Easter Sunday, but the experience of Good Friday and then going through Holy Saturday to get to Easter Sunday, I think it's important. You can't bypass any parts of that with people because it really isn't authentic in how people heal. They will get to a place where they survive, but they will never thrive until they go through that process. And it's a human process.
Well, thank you so much for the work you're doing, and thank you for spending time with us today and kind of sharing about your story.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
And thank you all for watching.